12-year-old Maya had always been the brightest light in her neighborhood. Her infectious laughter echoed through the streets of the East Side, and everyone knew her by name. She was a straight-A student with dreams bigger than the city itself. Her mother worked 2 jobs to keep their small apartment clean and filled with love, making sure Maya had everything she needed. On that Tuesday afternoon in March, Maya left school like any other day, waving goodbye to her friends as she headed toward home. But she never made it. Security cameras captured the moment a white van pulled up beside her. A man in dark sunglasses stepped out, grabbed her arm, and forced her inside. The abduction took less than 10 seconds. By the time anyone screamed for help, the van had already disappeared into traffic. The police arrived within minutes, but they had no leads, no direction, and no time to waste. Every second mattered, and they knew it. The investigation hit a wall immediately. The van had been reported stolen 3 days earlier. The man's face was obscured by the sunglasses and a pulled-down hood. Detective Sarah Chen, the lead investigator, felt desperate. She had a daughter Maya's age, and the thought of that little girl in danger consumed her every waking moment. Then the anonymous tip came through. A voice on the phone said Maya was being held in an abandoned warehouse on the industrial side of town. The caller wouldn't give his name, but the details were specific, almost too specific. The police rushed to the location, but it was a trap. The warehouse was empty, and whoever sent the tip was clearly testing the authorities' response time and tactics. Detective Chen realized then that this case had become something darker than a simple abduction. Someone wanted to stay ahead of the law. Someone was playing a dangerous game. And somewhere in the city, a 12-year-old girl's life hung in the balance. Time was running out, and the authorities were running out of options. They needed help from somewhere unexpected. Detective Chen sat in her car outside the precinct, staring at her phone. She had tried everything by the book, and none of it had worked. The FBI was involved now, but bureaucracy moved slowly, and Maya didn't have time for procedures. That's when she remembered Marcus. She hadn't spoken to him in 3 years, not since he helped her crack the Morrison case. Marcus ran a motorcycle club called the Iron Hearts, a group of bikers who had faced countless accusations and stereotypes. Most people saw them as troublemakers, but Chen knew better. She knew they had connections throughout the city that law enforcement could never access. She made the call at midnight. Marcus answered on the 3rd ring, his voice rough with sleep. When Chen explained the situation, there was a long silence. She could almost hear him thinking, weighing the risks. Then he simply said, "We're in." He didn't ask for details or compensation. A child was missing, and that was enough. Within 2 hours, word had spread through the entire underground motorcycle community. The Iron Hearts weren't alone in their passion for justice. Other clubs, some rival, some allied, all received the same message. A 12-year-old black girl named Maya had been taken, and anyone who cared about protecting their community was needed. The response was overwhelming. Bikers from 5 different clubs showed up at the warehouse headquarters on Riverside. Some of these men hadn't spoken to each other in years. Some had actual rivalries. But that night, all of that fell away. By dawn, 93 bikers had assembled. They ranged in age from their 20s to their 60s. They brought their skills, their street knowledge, and their determination. Marcus stood before them in the dim morning light, his gray beard catching the shadows. He told them about Maya, showed them her picture on his phone, and explained what they needed to do. They would search the city systematically, checking every abandoned building, every industrial complex, every place where someone could hide a child. No one would sleep. No one would stop until Maya was found. As the bikers prepared to scatter across the city, something profound happened. Rivals shook hands. Enemies nodded to each other with mutual respect. This wasn't about gang affiliations or turf wars anymore. This was about a child's life. These men, who society had written off as dangerous and meaningless, were about to become heroes in the most important way possible. They had no idea what they would discover in the hours ahead. The tip came at 4 in the afternoon. A biker named Tommy, who worked at a parts shop near the docks, overheard 2 suspicious men talking about a package being kept in an old brick warehouse near the harbor. The description and location matched details from the original anonymous call. Tommy immediately contacted Marcus, and within 30 minutes, the entire operation mobilized. This time, they wouldn't call the police first. Marcus knew that if the kidnappers saw law enforcement approaching, they would either move Maya or harm her. The bikers had to move fast and silent, something they were actually quite good at. 93 men on motorcycles could seem like an invading army, but when they needed to, they could move like ghosts. 40 of them surrounded the warehouse on foot while the others remained nearby as backup. They were careful, methodical, and deadly serious. Detective Chen monitored the situation from a distance, ready to call in the authorities the moment they had confirmation. She had explained the plan to her captain, and he had reluctantly agreed to let them try this unconventional approach. He knew that official procedures had already failed. Sometimes, you had to trust people outside the system to do what the system couldn't. Marcus led the first group through the warehouse's rear entrance. Inside, the darkness was thick and suffocating. Their flashlights cut through the shadows like knives. The warehouse was massive, filled with old shipping containers and piles of forgotten cargo. They moved carefully, their boots echoing softly on the concrete floor. Tension hung in the air so thick you could feel it pressing against your chest. Then they heard it. A child's cry, distant but unmistakable. Every biker's instinct kicked into overdrive. They moved toward the sound, faster now but still controlled. They didn't want to startle whoever was holding Maya. They found a reinforced room in the basement level, heavy chains securing the door. Marcus's face went red with rage when he realized what they were looking at. Inside, they could hear movement. Someone was there. One of the bikers, a giant man named Stone, simply tore the chains from the wall. He used a crowbar to pry the door open, metal screaming in protest. And there, in the dim light, sitting in the corner of that concrete room, was Maya. She was alive. But Maya wasn't alone. As the bikers' flashlights swept across the room, they froze in absolute shock. There weren't just one or two other children in that warehouse. There were 17. 17 kids of various ages, some as young as 6 years old, all trapped in different sections of the underground chambers. The enormity of what they had uncovered crashed down on them like a tidal wave. Marcus immediately called Detective Chen. His voice was shaking as he told her what they had found. Chen couldn't believe what she was hearing. This wasn't just a simple abduction. This was a trafficking operation. A massive criminal network had been operating right under everyone's noses. The bikers gently helped each child, speaking in soft, reassuring voices. Many of the kids were traumatized, frightened, and suspicious of these rough-looking men in leather jackets. But something about the genuine care in their voices, the careful way they handled the children, made them trust the bikers. One little girl named Emma, no more than 7 years old, reached up and held Stone's hand without hesitation. This giant, intimidating biker had tears streaming down his face as he carried her toward safety. As they helped the children toward fresh air and daylight, Marcus discovered something else. In one of the back rooms, they found detailed records. Files with photographs, documents, bank statements. This wasn't the work of some isolated criminal. This was organized, professional, and shockingly sophisticated. There were names on those documents that the bikers recognized. Names from their own neighborhoods. Names of people in positions of authority who should have known better. Within minutes, police sirens wailed in the distance. Detective Chen had finally called it in. Ambulances arrived to check the children for injuries and provide immediate medical care. FBI agents descended on the warehouse like ants, taking photographs and collecting evidence. The bikers stepped back, their work complete. But the revelation was only beginning. The records they had uncovered pointed to a network that extended far beyond this single warehouse. There were connections to other cities, other states, even international connections. This was bigger than anyone had imagined. The 93 bikers who had come together that night had done more than rescue 17 children. They had exposed a criminal conspiracy that had been operating for years. Ox was demolished. In its place, a small memorial garden was planted with 93 trees, one for each biker who had answered the call that day. The trees grew strong and tall, a living reminder that heroes come in all shapes, all colors, and all walks of life. Sometimes they ride motorcycles. Sometimes they show up when society has given up. Sometimes they remind us that the measure of a person isn't determined by their appearance or their past, but by the choices they make in moments that truly matter. The end.